Hi, welcome everyone. We're here to talk about a new open access graduate textbook published by Springer. The book, Introduction of Development Engineering, will be available this year in a couple of months by the end of summer 2022. And the poster session here will give you an understanding of the unique interdisciplinary agenda that the book sets forth. A good starting point are the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. The world has agreed upon the Sustainable Development Goals to ensure that human development is achieved in a way that balances the need for economic growth with environmental concerns. Technology is playing and will play a very important role in ensuring that we reach these Sustainable Development Goals. Development engineering is about using technology in a creative way to create pathways for achieving Sustainable Development Goals for vast majority of the world's population that lives outside the OECD countries. Development engineering, bringing technology and human development together. Development engineering is not the first attempt to do so. There's a long history of how technology and human development have come together. There are various different paradigms that we talk about in this textbook. We could talk about a few appropriate technology movement. For example, in the 1960s and 70s, sought to use the technology in rural contexts to help improve human development outcomes, often relying on local materials and local knowledge. The movement did not really scale up. Similarly, there are market-based approaches which aim to use the market power at the bottom of the pyramid to design products that can be used by people living in poverty. At the same time, these approaches did not really focus on large-scale public goods. Similarly, there are approaches like humanitarian engineering, information and communication technology for development, participatory design, and human-centered design. All of these approaches are intellectually trying to use technology to improve human development outcomes. One of the important learnings from all of these approaches is that when it comes to understanding why technology works or fails, it is important to understand the constraints within which people living in poverty operate. And social science research has done a lot to help us understand what are the institutional constraints, what are the market constraints, and what are the constraints from, let's say, behavioral or social norms perspective, which operate and in contexts which are resource poor. And so quantitative social sciences and technology can play an important role in continuously assessing what works and what does not work. And that's one of the crucial aspects of development engineering. So before going forward, let me define what development engineering is. It is the discovery of technological solutions that sustainably and reproducibly improve human development outcomes at scale in settings constrained by poverty. It is important to understand what human development engineering is not. Development engineering isn't a top-down approach. An example would be the Millennium Villages, where a lot of attempt was made to improve human development outcomes with limited feedback from the ground, limited evaluation of what worked and what did not. Neither is it a bottom-up approach where a lot of technologies, for example, the socket or the play pump, these are examples we discuss in the book, which were bottom-up. They were designed, but did not really scale up or did not really continue to be used by communities for which they were designed. So here I will transition and pass over to Ashok.
It's important to understand what are the defining features of development engineering that set it apart from the prior attempts that have been only partly successful, and we are building upon them and building upon other attempts, synthesizing the knowledge between technology, transition from engineering to technology, and the quantitative social sciences and applied economics. The work needs to be scalable. It needs to be hypothesis-based, which means that you are ready to discard a hypothesis and you are in a learning mindset if something doesn't work. So you're observing, evaluating, and testing how to go forward throughout the process. It's channel agnostic. The three main channels through which we can deliver goods and services for supporting development are, of course, the market, through the political institutions or through the governance institutions, and the community institutions, which are like non-profits. It must be generalizable, so you are not trying to solve small boutique problems. It has to be interdisciplinary because development is not a single discipline problem. And trying to approach it through a single discipline is guaranteeing that the approach will fail. And it must be sustainable. It's not a one-shot thing. Whatever we try needs to have a long-term impact, which means we must pay attention to its viability. The approach leads us to think about the efforts in development engineering as nested loops of iteration where each part itself has internal iterative loops, and they also go from one to the other and one next to the next, so that you are all the time learning as you close the loop and learn from what other parts have been teaching us. Now, the circle might make you think that this is a one-way circle. It's not. The circle actually can go in the other direction, and it can also jump over loops. So one could go directly from innovation and try a test evaluation and bring it back to the lab. So you can also have diagonal crosscuts, which is shown in the lower part of that figure. So the textbook itself has the first 4 chapters which provide an intellectual framework or a theoretical overview of the contents which follow in terms of separate case studies. These first 4 chapters are really central, and they talk about the introduction and the relationship between technology and development, and how to think about these iterative loops, and the ethics, what questions should we be asking, and how do we design, keeping in mind that we must go to scale. The next 19 chapters of the book are case studies written by experts and practitioners, collected in 6 different domains, which are listed there. The key point here is this is not simply theory or philosophy. This is actual boots on the ground work, and supports and leads to a deeper understanding of the first 4 chapters by saying, oh, this is how you implement these material. Lastly, I'll point out that this is an open access book available to anybody who has internet access. We have tested it for the last 2 years at UC Berkeley in graduate courses and improved the chapters with feedback from our graduate students. So it's really ready now for going out into the public and be available and be used by both teachers and practitioners and those who want to understand better how do we start thinking about this problem of development supported with technological innovation. Thank you.